and it's in my flesh, it's in my emotion that I don't realize is I'm not greater than the master. The master at one point in time was persecuted. The master was not listened to. The master was put through things. Yahushua, and so the same thing for us too. And so a lot of times when we acquire knowledge, we have different revelations of things, we tend to forget that there's still stuff that we have to struggle through, that we have to endure. There's still stuff that we have to suffer through. And a lot of times we forget that. Me personally, I tend to forget that sometimes. Verse 21. But all this they shall do to you because of my name, my Shem, my character, because they do not know him who sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would have no sin, but now they have no excuse for their sin. He who hates me hates my Father as well. If I did not do among them the works, which no one else did, they would have no sin. But now they have both seen and have hated me, both me and my Father. But that the word might be filled, which is written in their Torah, they hated me without a cause. Okay? So there's going to be times that people are going to hate us without a cause. There's going to be times when people come against us without a cause. And it has nothing to do with that he's not standing up for you. It has nothing to do with that there's no power in some of the things. It has to do with us being able to operate under that power and to be able to endure the tribulation, the trial, the situation that we're placed in, and to be able to persevere through it. 26. And when the Helper comes, whom I shall send to you from the Father, the Ruach of truth, who comes from the Father, he shall bear witness of me. But you also bear witness because you have been with me from the beginning. Okay? So we have to remember this. No matter how much we grow, no matter how much we know, no matter how much we've been revealed, no matter how much we've been taught, we're still going to have to persevere. We're still going to have to struggle. We're still going to have to endure. We're still going to have to fight through things. Okay? And like I said, sometimes I forget that. Example, let's go to Matthew chapter 26. Yahushua 26. Now we're going to look at an example of our Master Yahushua and what he had to do and how he had to endure. 26 verse 39. It says, and going forward a little, he fell on his face. This is when he was suffering before he died for us. It said he fell on his face and prayed, saying, oh, my Abba, if it possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I desire, but as you desire. So what is happening there? He is struggling with something. He is suffering. And he's having to endure. He's to the point where he's beginning to share his heart with the Father. It's like, man, if there was another way, but there isn't. So he's calling on him for strength, you know. And so there's a lot of times we're put in situations, you know, a lot of times we think like, oh, I could do that. That's not that hard. And then you get put in a situation where you have to do it. You have to exercise it. And then you feel weak and you feel like you can't go anymore. And you call on him for strength and for endurance. And so this is an example to us as to what he done, as to how we're supposed to approach it. He was like tired. He's like, man, I can't handle this anymore. But man, if I get not my desire, but yours, you will be done. So this is endurance. Him finishing this, finish it off, it's endurance. People, and sometimes we don't see that. We think like, oh man, well he lost because he died and he let them people take him out. He should have wiped them people out. No, that was him humbling himself, and we're going to look into that in a minute. That was him humbling himself and enduring in what Yahuwah had given him to do. And a lot of times we don't do that. We use the word humble as an excuse to get out of doing something he's asking us to do, right? Because we say, I'm just going to humble myself, so I'm not going to get involved, right? Well, that's a coward, okay? If we're following Yahushua, we can't be a coward. And so sometimes we use humbleness as a way to get out of stuff, as a back door, as a way out to do what he tells us to do. And it's not correct, right? So let's see here. Imagine if Yahushua would have said that. He's like, you know what, man? If I just stop fighting with these people, everyone might get along, and this, yeah, maybe I'll just do like the adversary said, and I'll just take over now, early, right? Because the enemy offered him, he said, bow down to me and I'll give you all this stuff. He says, bow down to me and I'll give you all the reigns that are mine, all the kingdoms that are mine. What was he trying to do? He was trying to give Yahushua a shortcut, right? He wasn't going to get as much from him. He was trying to shortchange him, but he was trying to make a shortcut. So he wouldn't have to endure all the drama, all the trouble, all the persecution, all the suffering, right, that he had to endure. But just the same as him, same with us, right? We have to endure whatever it is that's put in front of our face. We have to endure. We have to persevere in whatever he's called us to do, right? And we can't use, I'm going to be humble, as an excuse not to do what he called us to do, not to do the ministry that he's given us or the place that he's placed us, whether it be a place of authority or whatever it might be, whether it be a parent. So we have to understand that. Let's go to verse 40. And he came to his taught ones and found them asleep, and he said to Kepha, were you not able to watch over with me 1 hour? So what's going on here? He's in the most troubling, trying time of his life, and the people around him, he can't depend on them, right? They're not able to give him what he needs. They're not able to give him the support he needs, right? And that's sometimes with us. There's times we're going to have to go through situations and circumstances in our life where, yes, there's people around us, they care about us, but they just can't give us the support. They can't give us the things that we need. We just have to endure through the Ruach HaKodesh, calling on the Father, and persevere through whatever it is that we're going through, right? To finish the race or finish the task or finish whatever he's placed in front of us to finish, okay? It's difficult. Just because I'm with him, just because I'm serving him, and I'm calling his correct name, and I'm keeping the Shabbat, and I'm keeping the feast, and all these things, doesn't mean that it's not going to be difficult for me. It's still going to be difficult. The point is if I know he's called me to do something, I have an expectation, I have amunah, as we talked about last week, I have confidence that he's going to finish it. Even though at times I might waver in that, right? And I have to call on him, and I have to ask him, give me the amunah, give me the confidence to endure this to the end, because I know this is what you've called me to do. Now, if you're doing something in your flesh, a whole different story. That's completely different. That has nothing to do with any of this right now. We're talking about endurance through obedience to what the Father has given you to do with his word, okay? Me enduring to put up with a girlfriend and an ex-wife, and they're fighting, that's not endurance according to the word. That's my flesh. That's my own foolishness that's causing that to happen to me. And a lot of people sometimes take their foolishness and try to say, oh, I'm going through trial and temptation. No, you're not. You're an idiot, and you didn't obey the word, so now you're paying for your foolishness. It has nothing to do with the word. And so a lot of times people get that confused, and they misinterpret that, and they mess it up, and they try to say, oh, I'm having to endure through trials. No, it's not trials. That's a consequence to your sin. All right? So we're not talking about that. This is something completely different. The endurance that we're talking about is to be able to endure and to do what the Father has asked us to do, what Yahuwah has called us to do, in whatever situation that it is. And you'll see it come up time after time in your life. Verse 41. Watch and pray lest you enter into trial. The Ruach is eager, but the flesh is weak. 42. Again he went away a second time and prayed, oh my Abba, if it is impossible for this to pass unless I drink it, let your desire to come. And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. So he went twice, right? He was feeling it. Usually in Scripture, when they talk about something twice, it's really important, or it's really hard, or it's really, it's emphasizing something. So by him repeating it and going to the Father twice, he was emphasizing it was a struggle. It was a tribulation. It was a trial, okay? So in seeing that, and seeing that there's a trial, and seeing that there's a tribulation, and seeing that there's a struggle, we have to understand that there's going to be trials, tribulations, and struggles that we're going to have to go through as well. And a lot of times, to be honest with you, when I'm in a trial, a tribulation, or a struggle, I forget that, right? And I start to feel sorry for myself. I start to feel, man, I do all these things for you, and I'm trying to apply all the scriptures that you're telling me, and I'm trying to keep all the instruction that you're giving me to the best of my ability, and why is this happening, right? And I forget that a part of following him is following and also doing the same things he done. Of having to endure the trial, the tribulation, and the struggle that he had to endure as well. Okay? So before we get into some scriptures on endurance, let's look at the word humble. Let's go to Numbers 12:3. Be Midbar 12:3. Because like I said, we get confused because to endure, sometimes it takes us to stand strong and to hold our ground, right? And other people might say, you're being prideful. You're in pride. No, not necessarily. If that's what he's calling me to do, I'm not in pride, right? People think humble is just shut your mouth, sit down, shut up, let everybody walk on you, and that's just the way it's going to be. That's what it means to humble yourself. They think, humble yourself. Don't tell me nothing. Don't worry about it. Don't say nothing to myself. Don't say nothing to me about anything about the word. You need to humble yourself. You're being prideful. You're trying to tell me what the scripture says, and that's pride. You need to let me live my own life, right? No, that's not humble. So let's look at humble. Let's look at Numbers, Bimidbar 12. We'll start in verse 1. We'll read 1 through 3. Now Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moshe because of the Cushite woman whom he had taken, for he had taken a Cushite woman. And they said, has Yahuwah only spoken through Moshe? Has he not also spoken through us? And Yahuwah heard it. And the man Moshe was very humble, or meek. Right? Another word is meek. More than all the men who were on the face of the earth. So he was humble. Moshe was humble. So if he was humble, then how could he do all them great and mighty things that he did in Mitzrayim? If he was humble like we tend to think, of being a doormat, of being someone who gets walked on, someone who doesn't speak up, how could he have taught all the people all the instruction of Yahuwah? You think people didn't kick against him the time when he was trying to give them instruction? See, we just get little pieces. We get the highlights of what was going on in that time. We don't get every single detailed story. You think when he wasn't going over some of the instruction or bringing down some of the right rule, right? There was instruction that was given from the Father, right? Just like when you're in government, there's instruction that's given. There's a law there. There's something written. And you have to, as a leader, you have to interpret that, and you have to bring down the answer to that. You think everyone's going to agree to you every time that happens? No. You think everyone agreed with Moshe every time that he went and said, no, you can't do this because Yahuwah says this? No, it doesn't say all that, but it just talks about the highlights. And so what was he? When they spoke against him, was he humbled and just be quiet? Well, I don't want to fight with you. I'm just going to humble myself, right? No, now he's not humbling himself, because humbling himself is humbling yourself to Yahuwah, right? You can humble yourself in the situation, but if he's calling you to do something, you still have to follow through with what he's called you to do. You can't humble yourself to a point where you disobey his instruction, because then you're disobeying him, right? You're sinning. You're missing the mark. So we see here that it says Moshe was the most humblest or the most meekest man of all. Now it does mean gentle, right? But it doesn't mean doormat. It doesn't mean being walked on. Now let's look at an example. Let's look at some examples of Moshe. Let's look at Exodus chapter 9. We'll see if humble means, and like I said, we use the word, I want to humble myself, when we're maybe pressured, we're under pressure, we're in a situation, we don't want to offend people, we're afraid of what people are going to think, right? And I've learned that in ministry, you know? I've learned that in ministry. To do what's right is not always going to please everybody, right? And I can't let the loudest person, the biggest mouth, or the biggest group influence my decision, right? I can't do that. I have to base my decision upon what the Ruach has given me, upon what the Word says through confirmation, through witnesses. That's the decision I have to make as being a shepherd of this ministry. That's the decision I have to make being a husband over my home. That's the decision I have to make in making decisions with my family, whatever it might be. these are decisions that we have to make, okay? And so the things that need to be taken care of. And if I'm just humble in a way, if I think humbling is let somebody walk all over me, or never stand my ground, or never speak up, or never get my point across, then I have a problem. Okay? The word, okay, let's go to, let's say right here, Exodus chapter 9. Now this one's going to talk about humble and endurance at the same time. Okay? And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, go in to Pharaoh and speak to him. So what does Yahuwah tell Moshe? Yahuwah is telling Moshe, I want you to go to Pharaoh. Now what if Moshe, and this is a lot of us, and sometimes I'm Moshe, like let's say, what if Yahuwah told me to do something like this? Let's say Moshe didn't want to do it. He said, you know what? And here's what we do as believers. You know what? I'm just going to humble myself. You know, I don't want to go to Pharaoh because, you know, it's his kingdom, it's his place, it's his business, it's not my place, it's his life. You know what I mean? I'm just going to humble myself. I'm just going to be meek. I'm just going to humble myself. So what am I doing? I'm humbling myself before Pharaoh, but I'm not humbling myself and bowing my knee to hear the word of Yahuwah. See, I'm supposed to humble myself to Yahuwah first. So if I humble myself to Yahuwah and he says, you know what, you go and correct that. And then I go over there and they don't agree with me, then I say, I'm going to humble myself. Right? That's not correct. I'm still supposed to correct that. I'm supposed to line that up. I'm supposed to make that straight. No matter if they cry, no matter if they scream, no matter what is what? The word, if we're a believer of the word, if we're a follower of the word, it says we're supposed to make everything straight. He says he hates unjust weights and unbalanced scales. He said it's an abomination to him for something to be unjust, to be unstraight. Make it straight. Make it fair. That's why in the Word it talks about restitution. But half of the time, because a lot of people don't believe in the Tanakh, or don't believe in the Old Testament, they say the Old Testament is done away with, then we don't have no understanding of restitution. We don't understand what it means to have to pay somebody back. Right? It ain't just saying, my bad, I'm sorry. Let's move forward. No, you need to make it right. You need to pay restitution. In the scripture, it talks about that. You do this, you pay double-fold. You do this, you pay five-fold. Depending on what the situation is, you have to pay restitution. And so these are some of the things that are in place to help us to be able to keep things in the right way. But we're supposed to make everything straight. Okay? And a lot of times what the world does, or what unbelievers do, they put pressure on us, and they try to throw our own scripture at us, talking about you need to humble yourself, you're being prideful. And if we don't understand what it means to humble ourselves, if we don't understand when it's pride and when it's us enduring, if we don't know the difference of that, then they're going to be able to shut us down. They're going to be able to make us fold, right? And they're going to be able to make us not heed or be obedient to the word of Yahuwah. So we have to understand what it means to humble ourselves, and we have to understand what it means to endure. So here, when he's telling him, go to Pharaoh, he says, thus says Yahuwah, Elohim of the Hebrews, let my people go that they may serve me. What did he give him? He gave him a direct order. And what did Moshe? Moshe had a choice. He had an opportunity to whether humble himself and say, you know what, I'm going to humble myself to the word of Yahuwah, and I'm going to go and speak what he told me to speak. Now, what if he goes to Pharaoh and said, look at this guy. Who is he all prideful? I thought, that's pride. You need to shut up. What if Moshe said, okay, I'm going to shut up. Right? No. He went in there because he humbled himself to the word of Yahuwah, and he went in there with boldness, right? With being firm or whatever. He could have been gentle, but it doesn't mean just because you're gentle you can't get things done, right? I've had it happen over and over again. I had someone working for me before, and I told them, hey, this this is going on. This is not right. You need to straighten this out. I told them a couple times in a row. They didn't believe me. The last time I said, you know what? This is the last time I'm telling you. I'm not going to cuss you out. I'm not going to knock you out. I'm not going to break your window or nothing and get pissed off like that. But I said, I'm telling you, if it happens again, I'm letting you go, right? I was gentle, I was meek, but I was being firm in what I was saying. It happened again. All right, I don't need you no more. What happened? What did I do? What? I said, I already told you twice, right? I told you I'm not going to cuss you out. That ain't my style, right? So I was humble and meek, but I still held my ground. And see, that's what it means to endure, is to hold your ground. Endure means to stand, to take a stand, to continue, right? To maintain, to hold your ground, you know? And these are scriptural things here. So we see all these things he had to do. He had to come before Pharaoh, and he says, tell him this, verse 2. And he says also this, a condition. If you refuse to let them go and are still holding them, see, the hand of Yahuwah is over your livestock of the field, on the horses, on the donkeys, the camels, the cattle, the sheep, a very grievous pestilence. So he said, if you don't do this, there's going to be a curse coming down. Right? What about now? Oh, you're cursing people. Oh, you can't tell them that. You can't say things to people. Yes, you can. If you love them, you can. You're going to tell them, look, if you don't stop this, this is the kind of thing that you're looking forward to. This is what's in your future, you know. This type of thing is what you can expect. There's consequences to every choice we make. We can't just say like, oh, he loves us, and I'm going to humble myself, and I'm going to stay out of everybody's business, and I'm not going to tell nobody nothing, right? That's a unrealistic interpretation of who the Creator is, of who Yahuwah is. That's unrealistic. That's not who he is. That's not what he's about. He's two-sided. He's a loving father, but he's also a righteous judge. He makes things straight. You can't just have one side of him and play one side of him. Half of us play one side of him where he's just a judge, and all you want to do is just bang on people all the time and tell them how wrong they are. You know, you're not even involved in their life, or you're not even trying to help them change anything about their life, but you just sit there and complain about everything that they do wrong, about how they don't know certain things about the Word. Then go over there to spend time with them. Drive over there. They live in the next state over there, and drive over there and study with them and show them and love on them and teach them, instead of just sitting back on the internet typing stuff up and telling them how evil they are, how wicked they are. Do something about it. Go and be involved in their life. Then there's the other side who just said, oh, let's just love them. You know, the Father forgives them. Father loves them. He loves us all. He'll forgive us all. It's whatever, you know. No, it's not. So you have to find a balance. And a lot of times it took me time to find the balance. You know, and I wanted the love side. I just wanted to love everybody and love. And he's like, son, you're not loving them. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, if you don't correct them, if you don't help them to get right on the path, you're not loving them. You don't care anything about them. He goes, yeah, they're going to get mad at you. Yeah, they might say things about you. Yeah, they might talk about you, whatever. But what's more important to you? Giving them an opportunity to be on the right path, just like I did you? Or wanting them to be your friend and be all jacked up and screwed up? Right? And so I had to make a decision. I had to come to the place, and like I said, it wasn't easy. It's a struggle, and sometimes I still struggle with it, you know, of having to deal with things and having to, but there's no other way. If I care about people, I love people, if I want to represent, there's no other way, right? He was persecuted. He had to persevere. He had to press forward toward the mark. He had to press forward toward the goal. The same thing I have to do. There's no way around it. There's nothing I can do but do what he asked me to do and to endure what he puts in front of me. So here was Moshe. He was given an opportunity. He was given a place where he had to endure. Okay? Now he had to go against Pharaoh. Pharaoh represents a world power. Pharaoh represents something humongous, something huge, something bigger than you think you can. It's something like almost seems impossible to be able to overcome. And so we have these different types of pharaohs. We have these different types of Mitzrayims in our life. These things that seem overwhelming, that seem impossible to overcome, right? We look at this mountain. We're trying to fix something to make it straight. And we look at this mountain. We say, man, there's so much corruption in there. There's so much this in there. It's just impossible. It's just impossible. I quit. I don't want to do it, right? You have to push forward. You have to keep doing. You have to go forward and do it. I remember when my daughter was born, and it's a little basic example, but still an example. I remember when my daughter was born. She was born in a car, and so we couldn't get a birth certificate from the hospital, you know, and it was a struggle. And I remember about 2 weeks in, I'm like, you know what? Forget it, man. I don't even care. She don't even need a birth certificate right now, anyways, right? I was like just ready to quit because I was calling people. They were saying, you need to talk to this person. I was calling people. They said, I don't know what you're talking about. I'll call them and say, I don't know what you're talking about. I call them back and forth, and I'm talking to all these people, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. You got to go to them. They got to go to you. You got to go there. You got to go. And they're like, no, you don't go here. You go over there. And so I'm just like, you know, I quit. I quit. I'm not going to do it. Just forget it, man. Quit. It's just too. It's too big of a. It's just whatever, man. Just whatever. I ain't even gonna. Right. Then I thought about it. I was like, that's for my daughter, man. It's for her. And what if she gets sick, or what if she needs that, you know? And right now, she can't do it for herself, you know? So as her parent, it's my responsibility to make that right. If whatever, I'm a part of a tribe, you know? So if there's any way that I can improve the tribe, you know, I have to do that. You know, whatever you're a part of, whether you're a part of a workplace, you know, and then say there's a break room, you know, and you have the opportunity where you can sit there and read your word, or offer prayers on the break time, or whatever it might be, whatever realm He's put you in of influence, environment, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a counselor, or whatever, or whether you're just a worker, you're somebody who just works on the floor, you know, at Walmart or something. You know, there's always an opportunity. He's placed us in different places to be able to do different things. And so we can't quit. And so I seen that. I said, you know, it's for my daughter. I said, I want to quit. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. It's just getting me so angry. I don't even care, right? And that was most of my life. It's like, I don't even, just whatever. I'll do some of it. I start doing whatever, and I just quit. I don't want to do it no more. I want to. But I remember I had to persevere, and I went through all these things, and I finally got it. It took me forever, but I finally got it, right? But I had to endure, and it looked like a mountain that was impossible. So I imagine the Moshe in his flesh, he's looking at Pharaoh, and he's like, he's got this big old kingdom and all this big thing. Like, man, I don't even want to deal with this dude, you know? See, a lot of times, here's what we misinterpret about the Scripture. We read about these people, and we think they're like superheroes. Remember, they only give highlights. The same feeling that we feel, the same struggle that we struggle with, they felt the same thing, right? They just pushed it off. The same thing with us, right? You think when Abraham was walking his son to be sacrificed, you think it didn't cross his mind at all to turn back? Man, it crosses. I guarantee you it crossed his mind. But you know what he did? You know, I rebuked that. I rebuked that thought. That's a fiery dart. Just like it talks about in Ephesians chapter 6 about the armor, the enemy throwing fiery darts, which is a suggestion. He's throwing a suggestion at you, and you say, you know what? That's not my thought. That's foreign to the Ruach HaKodesh. That's foreign to my Father. You know, I reject that thought. I'm not going to think about that, right? You think about sometimes that you don't go places. There's sometimes I go, and I go in, and I used to have a gambling problem. I go into the donut shop, and there's lottery tickets there. Now, because I serve Yahuwah, now you think that doesn't cross my mind? Sometimes I say, man, I want to scratch it. You know, I rebuke that thought. That's not, you know, that's not of the Father. That's not of me anymore, right? They did the same thing. Moshe had a struggle with the same. He had flesh just like we have flesh. He had to crush his flesh just like we have to crush our flesh, right? He had to cast down imaginations just like we have to cast down imaginations. The same thing. It's no different, okay? So they're not some far-off, crazy, superhuman superhero, right, that we can't be like them. They're just like us. They were just, you know, and we see times when people falter. We see David, he faltered, right? He slept with Bathsheba, right? What did he do? He faltered. His flesh overcame him in that moment. You see it time and time again. You see Abraham, he faltered with his wife Sarah. He got afraid. And he said, you know what, pretend like you're my sister because I don't want him, you know, to do anything to me because you're so beautiful and to want to be with you. So I'm just say you're my sister, you know. And he was willing to let somebody be with his wife to save himself, right? So what was that? That was an example of his flesh rising up and overtaking his ruach, or his spirit, his breath, the breath of Yahuwah in him. And in that moment, he made a wrong decision. Okay, so same thing here with Pharaoh. He's same thing with Moshe. It's a struggle. It's not as easy as we think. Just read it straightforward. Verse 4. And Yahuwah shall separate the livestock of Israel from the livestock of Mitzrayim, or Egypt. Mitzrayim, if you don't know, Egypt stands for bondage. Okay, it stands for the world, but if you look up the word, it means bondage. Okay, so it's a place of bondage. And if we're a part of the world, we watch the movies like the world, we listen to music like the world, we drink like the world, we sleep around like the world, then we're in bondage. We're in bondage to sin. Sin is our master. We're the slave to sin. So every time you see Mitzrayim, 90% of the time, or majority of the time, if you can relate to that, you can pull it out and say it represents bondage. So he says, I'm going to separate the livestock of Israel from the livestock of Mitzrayim. And let no matter die of all that belongs to the children of Yisrael. And so what is Yahuwah saying through Moshe? Moshe is telling him, you know what? Then your stuff's going to die, and your stuff's not going to produce life. Okay? So he's telling him this, and he's telling him this. So he says, I'm drawing a line here. I'm making a line here. Okay? Now, does this sound like Moshe right here is being scary? Is he going to Pharaoh and saying, well, if you don't mind, if it doesn't bother you, if you think you feel like doing it, would you let us go, please, maybe? If you don't want to, it's cool. I just want to humble myself. I don't want to be prideful, just whatever, right? No, he wasn't coming at him like that, right? Why? Because he humbled himself before Yahuwah, and Yahuwah given him a word, and so now he had to execute that command, that word that he was given, okay? That doesn't mean he's not humble. That doesn't mean he's prideful. It means he's humble in the fact that he's humbling himself to Yahuwah, and he's going to be he's going to endure, and he's going to persevere, and he's going to complete the command that Yahuwah gave him to fulfill, right? And so, like I said, if we don't understand it, then we're going to say, I don't want to be prideful. I don't want to hurt no one's feelings, right? Verse 5. And Yahuwah set an appointed time, saying, tomorrow Yahuwah is going to do this word in the land. And Yahuwah did this word on the next day, and all the livestock of Mitzrayim died, but the livestock of the children of Yisrael, not one died. And Pharaoh sent, and see, not even one of the livestock of Israel was dead, but the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. Okay, so think about this, okay? Moshe goes to Pharaoh by Yahuwah's will, okay? Not by his own will. And so here's where we confuse it sometimes, because we go and do things in our flesh, and we want Yahuwah to co-sign it, or we expect the outcome to be how we want it to be, right? And even if we go in the will of Yahuwah, it doesn't always mean that it's going to be the way we want it to be. Sometimes people are going to accept it. Sometimes they're going to be angry. So, you can't really control and call what's going to happen. All you know is I completed the task that I was called to do. I finished the work that he sent me to do. And that's all I can really do. Okay? So we see here he was called. Now, what do you think? You think he basically told Pharaoh, if you don't let the people go, your cattle's going to die. All your money's going to, it's like taking money out of his bank account. They say, okay, you have $2 million in the bank. Okay, well, you don't do this. Now you're only going to have $1,000 in the bank, or $100,000, right? You think Pharaoh was mad? Think he was upset? Oh, most definitely. I can tell you, I know. All right, he was probably mad. Look at verse 8. And Yahuwah said to Moshe and Aaron, fill your hands with ashes from the furnace, and let Moshe scatter it towards the Shemaim before the eyes of Pharaoh. So listen, what happened? There was this one incident that happened. Moshe did everything he was supposed to do. We're in chapter 9 of Shemoth, Exodus chapter 9. There was this incident, okay, where Yahuwah sent Moshe to do something before Pharaoh, right? And he did everything that Yahuwah asked him to do. And Pharaoh's livestock was dead. Now, what would we want to happen? What would we want to happen if it was us? We'd want Pharaoh to submit. I would. I like things to be easy. Sometimes I struggle because it's like, man, where are you at? You said you're going to be right here with me. You said, man, what's going on, man? I'm calling the name above our name. What's wrong, right? Because I wanted to go down now. I was like, all right, I completed the task. Make it happen right now, all right? But he didn't. What did he do? He said, go back in. You think in Moshe's mind is like, dude, this dude's probably heated right now. Man, you're going to send me back in there? I bet I know he wrestled with it in his mind, because he's flesh just like we're flesh. When he asks us to do something, you wrestle with it sometimes, right? So he's sitting there thinking, man, just, you did it already. And you hardened his heart. Why'd you harden his heart? Why are you going to send me back in there? What is that? Endurance. What are we talking about? About continuing, okay? About being persistent. About holding your ground. About standing up, right? Standing up for what? Whatever Yahuwah has called you to do. Whatever he's asked you to be involved in, to stand up. Is he prideful here? No, he's not prideful, because pride is doing something in your own flesh. He's not doing it in his own flesh. He's doing it by the word of Yahuwah. Can I raise my voice in Yahuwah? Most definitely I can. I can, and I've had to. And I just say, you can't talk to me. What do you mean? I can raise my voice. I'm getting my point across. You know, there's sometimes I'll raise my voice, then I'll realize I won't get them, and I'll stop, and I'll say, okay, the conversation's over. We're not conversating no more. I did what I had to do. I say what I had to say, and the decision I made is final. That's it. No, but there's no conversation. No, but I want to say, there's no conversation. It's over. Because I've been placed in authority on a certain thing, I have to deal with it. Now there's other instances, other places where I'm not in authority. And so I step into a place, and even as a man of Yahuwah, I've stepped into places where people have made decisions, and I'm like, in my flesh, I'm like, man, I'm just going to start rebuking them, because I'm going to start speaking the word over it, because I'm a follower of Yahuwah, and I'm going to say all these things. He said, you're going to shut your mouth, and you're going to turn around and walk out. He goes, because they're in a place of authority, and for whatever reason I wanted it to be that way, that's just the way it's going to be. You don't have authority over this situation. You have authority in me, but right now, I'm giving them authority because I'm using them, one, to humble you, but also I'm using it because I'm doing something for you in your life that you don't realize that I'm doing, right? And so my flesh, I wanted to speak up, right? I wanted to say, you know what, man, this is so sideways, this is so blah, blah. And he said, just be quiet, respect the authority, respect the decision. I said, yeah, but you have authority over them, and I can go over them because I serve you, and you're higher than them. And he said, I know that, but right now I sat them in the place that they are, and I gave them authority for a reason, and I want you to submit to that authority. And submitting to that authority is submitting to me because I put them in there. If I want you to overstep that authority, then I will rise up in you by the Ruach and allow you to do that. But right now, I'm not. That's your flesh. You need to settle yourself down. You need to walk out the door and accept what it is for now. And I'll reveal. And tell me why. I'm not telling you why. I'll reveal it to you when I feel like revealing it to you. Why? Because he's sovereign. He doesn't owe me. He didn't have to tell me when I want. I don't have the right. And sometimes I do. You know, in my flesh I do. I'm like, man, I serve you. I do all this for you, and I do all these things, and you can't tell me. Why ain't you telling me? Right? Like if, you know, like if I have a place, like he deserves, you know, to have to tell me. You know, it's not that way, you know. And when I get over my emotion, I go and say, you know, I'm sorry. You know, I repent. I don't need to talk to you like that. You know, just help me, please. And you know, my emotions are getting the best of me right now. My flesh is rising up. The situation is just, you know, it's just overwhelming me, and I'm just struggling. I'm struggling. I need help, you know. And he honors that. Because, see, I'm in a relationship with him, and see, he wants us to go to him. It's a matter of me going to him and then me going to somebody and lashing on somebody and giving him a bad reputation. You know, he'd rather me take it to him. So I dump on him. Even though I have to repent, right? At least I'm not giving him a bad name among other people because I'm maybe flipping somebody off on the road because they cut me off, or I'm cussing somebody out at the grocery store, and then the person that came to my ministry a couple weeks ago, or the person I tried to tell about Yahuwah, happened to be walking down the couple aisles over, and they walk, and they're like, oh, dang, that's a believer? Something wrong with that dude, right? And so I try to go with my emotion, and I don't do it all the time, but I try to. I try to take my emotion, I try to take my frustration, I try to take everything to him first and release it on him, right? Even if sometimes I have to repent later for some of the things I said, because he'd rather me lose it on him than lose it on somebody else. And you only learn that through relationship, so that might be a little bit, some people might be afraid to say, wow, how could you talk to him like that? You know, it's not out of disrespect, it's out of love, it's out of someone I trust, it's someone I confide in. You know what I mean? It says to lean on him. It says to take all your cares to him, take all your burdens to him, and so I'm operating in that, right? Now, that doesn't mean You know, because sometimes it's fake where we just go to him and say, oh, I love you so much, and you do so, you know, and all these things. And, you know, but it's, I mean, yeah, we love him, but sometimes it's like, man, I feel like you're just running me through the mud, man. I feel like you're just making me a doormat, man. You just won't give me a break, man. I can't catch a breather for nothing. Like one thing after another, after another, after another. Come on, man. Right? I'm being real, though. I'm being real with him because I have a relationship with him. So I know Moshe and his relationship somewhere had to say, man, you can't just give me a pat, man. You can't just be one time I have to go before. Come on, man, again. But what did he have to endure? He had to endure, right? It's a Hebrew word, 5975, like we said, and it means to be persistent, okay? He had to be persistent. He had to continue in what he was called to do. And what was he called to do? He was called to go to Pharaoh and say, let the people go. And so he had to be consistent in that, okay? It doesn't mean he was prideful because he went before Pharaoh. And it doesn't mean he was prideful because he was straightforward with his words. You know, there's times when I had to be straightforward with people. I said, you know, if you don't stop doing that, there's no point in you even coming to the service. There's none. Because you're just going to do some religious stuff, you know, and you have this big old elephant in the middle of the room. You have this big old sin that you're operating in, and you think you're going to do all this other stuff, and it's going to take that away. You need to deal with that first. Because if you don't deal with that, all the rest ain't going to help you either. So you need to fix that. If you can't fix that, then you don't need to come here, right? Now, I haven't said that to many people, but I've had to say that to a few, right? And they say, oh, you don't want me to come to you? I'm like, no, I'm not going to sit here and pat you and pretend like there's nothing going on. You know, you're asking me to help you. It's like you go, if somebody goes to a doctor for surgery and they say, okay, you got a stub toe and you got a heart that's failing. And I would say, I'm going to work on your toe, right? Man, they're going to die. Dude, if I see someone bleeding from the neck or if I see sin in life that's going to destroy them, I'm going right after that first, right? And I'm going to say, hey, you know, I'll work with them. But, you know, sometimes there's, like I said, in the instance when I have to do stuff like that, it's like sometimes people have been at it for a long time. I've known them for years, you know, and it's like, man, you're still doing that, man. You got to cut that out. I'm like, you've been doing that for like 6, 7, 8, 9 years. You wonder why you keep going through the same cycle because you won't cut that out. Don't bother to waste your time to come if you're not going to stop that because you know you can't do that. There's no point, right? It's just going to make you think Yahuwah is bad. He doesn't love me. He doesn't have power. He doesn't have this. No, he has all that. But you just won't be obedient and change that thing about your life that's bringing the destruction. And so, does that mean I don't love him? No. Does that mean I don't care about him? No. Does that mean if they call me, I won't pray for them? No, I'll pray for them. I'll call them. And I'll be in the life. I'll say, you call me anytime. But I'm not going to sit there and pat a sin and pretend like it's okay when I see him dying right in front of me. I'm not going to let that happen. You know, and so it's a responsibility that we take. Now, some people say, well, you need to be humble. That is humble. Because Yahuwah told me to tell him that. So I'm going to tell him what he told me. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to say like, well, if you feel like it, maybe, I don't know, if you don't, maybe if you feel like doing this, you shouldn't do this anymore. All right? Now I'm being disobedient. I'm not humbling myself to Yahuwah. Okay? So sometimes when we come across firm, we come across like maybe a stern tone, some people say, oh, that's pride. Not pride. Not all the time. Okay? Now, I mean, you generally want to start soft. You know, some people have to get themselves all wired up to say anything to anybody. They go, right? Because they're nervous. I used to be like that. I used to be nervous. So before I had to go tell someone, I'd think about all the things. Man, they're doing this wrong. Doing this wrong. You're not supposed to do that, right? Because I don't have enough courage to, with a soft voice, you know, with a gentle voice, get my opinion across. But as I matured, I've come to a place where I can just go and say, you know what? You know, this is a problem. This has to stop. You know, we can't do this anymore. It's not going to work this way. You know, and say, you know, but this and this and this. No, I'm not. We're not going to make an excuse. You know, you're not going to blame it on nobody else. Don't try to run away from it. You know, so I'm being gentle. I'm being calm, but I'm enduring. I'm maintaining. I'm continuing in what he's asked me to do. I want you to correct him on this, or I want you to tell him yes on this, you know what I mean? Or whatever it might be. It's not always correction, you know. I want you to go encourage somebody. Maybe he wants me to go encourage somebody who maybe I love, but I don't necessarily like. I love them, but they're not the person that I want to choose to be around to go hang out on a day when I have a day off, right? That doesn't mean I don't love them. That doesn't mean I don't forgive them. Maybe we just have two different types of personalities, and said, you know what, I want you to go love on this dude. I want you to, say he wanted to send me over to Texas to take some to Eliyahu, and he says, you know, I want you to take that brother with you. Well, I don't really want to take him because he's got a loud mouth, or you know, he does this. I don't like the way he, whatever. You know, I just don't want to. I don't want to. Yeah. It's like, well, but I want you to take him, right? And so I might have to endure that brother. I might have to endure that sister. I might have to endure that family that maybe that I don't get along with as well as everybody else. Maybe, you know, I might not hate them. I might not have unforgiveness in my heart towards them, but we might just have a different way of doing things, right? But he says, I want you to do it. And so now I have to endure. I have to continue. I have to maintain. I have to take them with me to Texas, right? And I have to be nice, and I have to treat them with respect, and I have to overlook some things that maybe I don't like, or maybe, you know, maybe they're not sin, but I just don't like them. I don't like the way they chew their gum, and I don't want to hear them chew their gum all the way to Texas. I don't want them to go with me, right? Is it a sin the way they chew their gum? No. Is it a sin the way I like my gum chewed? No, it's not. But there's some things that we just have to endure, and we have to continue, and we have to persevere. And so this is one of them situations where Moshe had to endure. So here he goes again. Verse 8. It says, and Yahuwah said to Moshe and Aaron, fill your hands with the ashes of the furnace, and let Moshe scatter it toward the Shemaim before the eyes of Pharaoh. Verse 9. And it shall become fine dust in all the land of Mitzrayim, and it shall cause boils that break out in sores on man and beast in the land of Mitzrayim. So they took ashes from the furnace and stood before Pharaoh and Moshe and scattered them toward the Shemaim and caused boils breaking out in sores on man and beast. Verse 11. The magicians were unable to stand before Moshe. Another word for stand there is endure. The same word. Stand, a lot of times the word stand is endure. So it says the magicians were not able to endure before Moshe because of the boils. The boils were on the magicians and on the Mitzrites. Verse 12, check this out. See, I'm like, oh, come on, man. 2 times, let's be over with it by now. But Yahuwah strengthened the heart of Pharaoh and did not listen to them, as Yahuwah had said to Moshe. And so what happened? And so we all know the story. I'm sure we've all read this before. Moshe goes in time after time after time after time. What did he have to do? He had to endure. Right? He had to persevere. Pharaoh would get upset. There was probably whispers, oh, Pharaoh's going to do this to Moses when he comes in. You know what I mean? He don't have like some supernatural thing where it doesn't go through his mind. Yes, he has to deflect stuff like we have to deflect stuff. Man, he's probably getting tired. Maybe he's going to kill me. Maybe, you know, maybe I'm going to die. Maybe Aaron is supposed to take over. Maybe this is all as far as I'm supposed to carry it. You know, maybe I'm wrong, man. My flesh, you know, like, man, he told me. Is he telling me to do this? I mean, yeah, I see the miracles happening, but nothing's changing. I mean, like, man, am I crazy? Like, what? Like, you know, what do I do? You know, but he has to endure. And so it's not comfortable for Moshe. It isn't. I'm telling you. And it's not comfortable for us to endure. Okay, but it's necessary. And enduring, sometimes people, like I said, can take it as pride, right? Sometimes people would say it's like, he didn't listen the first time, you know, don't. It's like, Yahuwah told you keep doing it. Right? Don't let people run you off because people, oh, that's prideful. You're in pride. Oh, yeah, you know what? Maybe I am. I'm just going to humble myself in front of them. I'm not going to say anything. Right? They've taken our own word, right? Because that's what the enemy does. He twists the word. The enemy knows. When someone's in their flesh and I correct someone, you're full of pride. You have unforgiveness in your heart. You can't forgive. No, I forgave you. I've forgiven you. But you've done it 5, 6, 7, 8 times. At some point in time, you know, you cannot continue doing that. There has to be judgment, right? You can't keep doing, no, right? So we see it. We see it happening all the time. Where they use our words against us, they use the word pride, or they use the word humble, and they get us to stop doing the will of Yahuwah. We stop. It's like, well, you know, I don't want to be prideful, because pride comes before the fall, right? But they're using that as a weapon against you. Like I said, you have to discern, am I in my flesh? Is this something Yahuwah has called me to do? If he's called me to do, I'll do it. Push forward, persevere. And sometimes I'm in the middle of something, he'll say, okay, I don't want you to do it no more. And I have to say, no, you know what? No, because if I stop now, it's going to look like they're right. If I stop now, it's going to look like, I need to defend myself. I need to defend you. I need to defend your name. I need to do it. And he said, you better knock it off right now and stop. Right? Because that's what you do, like your flesh. That's your flesh. I believe it happens to me all the time. It's like somebody say, no, you know what? They're accusing me. I need to defend myself because I represent you, so I need to say the things that they're doing. And he goes, don't say them. And like, I need to answer. I need to answer. No, because other people can get hurt by this rumor, by this. And he was like, don't say nothing this time. Well, how am I going to? Whose children are they? Whose children are they? They're my children? Okay. What if they get hurt by it? Pray for them. Let me deal with it. Maybe I'm trying to teach them something. Maybe I'm trying to, because, and so as a baby, I would learn, I'd take all this pressure because I'm feeling like, oh, what if they're going to say, what are they going to think about this? And I had to do this, and and they like them, and they might think that I'm mean, or, they might think that I'm this, or I'm not, like, man, nobody might ever want to talk to me. And he's saying, like, well, you're getting a taste of what I had to deal with. All right? That's what the first scripture read. The servant is not greater than his master. I can't call myself a servant and expect just to slide through and everybody love me. And, oh, here comes a believer in Yahuwah. Everybody make way and do everything he wants and listen to everything he says. And don't argue with him and don't give him a hard time. It's unrealistic. Okay? It just doesn't happen. So, but it's about us maintaining. Like I said, it's about us enduring, persevering, and pushing through. Let's look at Matthew chapter 11. So you can go through and look at that story. And see, a lot of times our flesh will want to use humble too, to complete the will of Yahuwah. It's like, he'll say, I want you to go and do this. Let's say somebody who helps out in the ministry, or say somebody who, I don't have a job right now. Let's say if I was doing this here and I don't have a job and somebody volunteers, and pays my car payment for me and pays my light bill so I can, until I can get on my feet and get a job, right? Then all of a sudden they're in sin or something, or there's something I need to correct them on. They made a mistake, and I'm like, in my flesh, like, boy, what if they don't pay my bill no more? What if they don't, what if they're not gonna like me, or, and all the congregation likes them, and like, what do I do, and how am I gonna take care of my family, and what am I gonna drive around in, and like, like, what do I do, And I'm in a position where I have to make a decision. Am I going to humble myself to Yahuwah? And I am going to endure whatever comes along with the consequence of the thing that I say for Yahuwah? Or I'm going to try to save myself in the flesh and just ignore it and say, I'm going to humble myself. He does a lot of things for me. I'm just going to pray and fast. I'm going to fast for like a week and not tell nobody and pray that they would have a dream. All right? And that's what I used to, when I was at the beginning, I actually used to say, like, because, and this funny thing is when I started coming into leadership and Eliyahu wouldn't be there, then people would start doing things when he wasn't around, And at first I was like, I'm just going to pray. I'm going to fast. And he's like, go and tell him. I'm going to pray and fast. You're going to pray and fast, and I'm going to tell you the same thing. You need to go and tell him. Like, you ain't going to sit there, give him a dream. I say, give him a dream. Give him a vision. Let a messenger visit him in the night and make them change their thoughts and make them, do this. And he was like, you're the messenger. And you go and tell them. And you tell them to their face. And you I'm like, oh, but I don't want to do that. Just send somebody. Please, you gave dreams to, like you gave to them. Give them a dream, right? And I'll start finding scriptures about people who had dreams, that have visions. Just like you did Shaul when he was going to persecute him. Like, do the same thing to him. Like, open his eyes. Like finding all the scriptures to match my little flesh story, right? Because that's what it is. It's a flesh story. I've got all these scriptures to match my little flesh story so I can get away from humbling myself and doing what I ask you to do, And humbling myself, there's sometimes we need to humble ourselves where we need to close our mouth. There's sometimes where we're in our flesh. And so there's one form of humbling that way. Right? So I had to endure. So there's things in our lives that we have to endure. Okay, we have to hold our ground, whether it be pressure of family to do certain things, pressure of friends or co-workers or whatever it is. We have to endure to make sure we stay humble in the way that Yahuwah was humble. And Yahushua was humble. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 21, verse 12. So we see here that Yahushua himself, he called himself meek and humble. Okay? Now all the stuff that he does, all the stuff that he did, could he have done that being a doormat? No. There's just a way you do, there's a certain, use discernment. There's a way you do things. Right? That doesn't mean to say, okay, I don't have to be soft. I'm just going to poke everybody in the chest every time. No, you don't do that. There's a way. Sometimes when I'm talking to people and they're talking about the word and it's just, and I never heard of it before, I'm like, and I know and I'm like, that ain't in the word, you know? So I'm like, okay, how do you want me to come at them? Sometimes they say, that's not in the word. Or sometimes they'll say, ask them where it's at. And so I'll say, man, I don't know, I must having my brain is not functioning. I don't remember where that scripture is. Can you show me where it is? I don't remember where it's at. Yeah? So they're like, oh, okay, and they're like looking, and they're like, well, I know it's here somewhere. It's just I can't find it. And they're like, well, maybe it's not in there. I was like, yeah, maybe not. I don't remember it. I never remember anything like that. I mean, and then I might say the closest thing to it was maybe this, but that has really nothing to do with that. That's talking about a whole different story. That's talking about, and so now I'm giving them a message on that scripture. You know, I turned it around on them. You know, and then sometimes you just have to tell them, you know, like, hey, that's not in the word. You know, that's not correct. You know, depending on the person you talk to, some people are more aggressive, and sometimes you have to be aggressive with them. You don't have to get in the flesh, but you have to be aggressive with them. You know, you have to, you know, be firm with them. I had someone who always used to call and just talk about himself, talk about the word, and this and that, and you know, and so they called me one time, and I'm like, you know, and they text me one time, and they're like, I just text them. I said, you know what? I'm just going to text you because I'm going to be honest with you. I said, you never listen to me. Every time I'm trying to talk, you're just trying to think about what you're going to say next. All you want to do is hear yourself. So I said, there's no point in me trying to talk to you on the phone because you're not going to listen. But if I send you a text, you're reading, so you have no choice but to listen. And so I said, I'll text him. You know what I mean? I'll text him because he will not listen to me in a conversation. He's just too much on himself. So that's just discernment on how I deal with him. By being firm with him, I'm just saying, you know, it's just about you, you know. You're basically talking to yourself and bragging on yourself, and I just really don't want to hear it anymore. You know, I'm just tired of hearing about, you know, how great you are and all the things that you can do, you know, and all the stuff that he's giving you with money. You know, I don't really care about that, you know. We're not the same. And I said, and he said, what, are you afraid to talk? I'm not afraid to call you on the phone, but you won't listen to me anyway, so what's the point? So it's easier just for me to text you because you're reading it until you're understanding where I'm coming from, right? Now, I only did that with one person. Most of the time, I'll talk to them on the phone. I don't like texting people because I feel if I can, I'd rather be face-to-face. Even though in my flesh, I'm not confrontational type. But in the Ruach, I know I have to be, you know. I have to be. So I deserve someone to sit down with them and tell them face-to-face. I don't just send them a text, hey, you need to stop doing that, you know. I deserve to give them an expectation. So that's a part of enduring. I have to endure through the process of whatever it is that's taken. Like maybe I'm restoring somebody from sin. So I have to endure. It's like, man, I don't want to deal with this person. I'll just toss them to the side. And he's like, no, I want you to take them, bring them in, and I want you to begin to fix what happened somewhere else, or you know, work on that. You know, and there's times I'm like, man, I'll have to endure, right? And there's things we have to endure that maybe we don't want to endure. So we see here in Matthew chapter 21, verse 12. It says, and Yahushua went into the Kodesh place of Elohim and drove out all those buying and selling in the Kodesh place. So what did he do? Was he doing, excuse me, people, if you feel like it, maybe, but if you don't, it's okay. Stop doing that. But I don't want to offend you. He didn't do that, right? He calls himself still humble, so he was humble. But in this moment, it took him to do something drastic and dramatic for them to understand what was going on. And, hey, I need to turn everything upside down on you guys so you can realize what's happening. It doesn't mean he wasn't humble. It doesn't mean he wasn't meek. He was still that. But it was called for a time for him to do something, and so he had to do what was necessary, completing the will of his Father. Okay? So that's the same thing with us. We have to endure. We have to stand. We have to take a stand. There's areas in our lives where we have to take a stand. Okay? We have to stand up. Let's turn to Matthew 24. This is probably our last scripture. Matthew 24. And as I sat on the Mount of Olives, the taught ones came to him separately, saying, say to us, when shall this be? And what is the sign of your coming and the end of the age? And Yahushua answering said to them, take heed that no one leads you astray. For many shall come in my name, or my Shem, my character, saying, I am Moshiach, and they shall lead many astray. So what do we have to endure? We have to endure through false things. We have to endure not to be led astray. We have to continue in the truth. We have to continue to show some, okay, where's it at in the Word? 2, 3 witnesses. Where's it at? I'm not just going to listen because you tell me one time, right? And here's where we run into trouble. Like, and I did. I learned something from somebody. Like, this was even when I was a Christian. I learned something. I was like, man, I never knew that. And so like, wow, this guy's powerful stuff. So because I learned something from him, and because it was something that impacted my life, then I unconsciously just accepted everything that came out of his mouth as truth. And I learned real quick, because one time I repeated something, he goes, where's that in the Word? I'm like, well, it's got to be here, because so-and-so said it, and he told me this thing that changed my life. It was impacting my life in a powerful way, and I'm looking for it, so it's got to be in here, and I'm looking, I can't find it. I'm like, what the heck? How is it not in here, right? Because, see, that was one revelation that he had. And so all of us have different revelations, okay? You can get a revelation, you know, so that's one revelation, okay? Or that's one maybe part revelation and part experience that they have, right? They might not even know the name, but they might have an experience that can help you. And they might have some form of truth revelation. And so just because they have some form of truth doesn't mean that everything that comes out of their mouth is truth. Everything has to be lined up, 2 or 3 witnesses, right? And you know, and if people are sincere, when they make a mistake, they'll correct themselves. They'll say, you know what, I was wrong on that. You know, I thought that's what it was. You know, forgive me for that. You know, and then you know it's like, okay, that person at least is making an effort to walk in the way, to do the right thing, and when they make a mistake, they correct themselves. Now, say somebody who's trying to build something of themselves, who's trying to build their ministry or build their name, they don't want to correct themselves. Because if they correct themselves, then people might stop. They might not be the ultimate truth anymore. People not want to come. People might not want to come and hear them. People might want to not you know, always talk about them. You know, but Yahushua wasn't that. So if that's what they are, then they're not really 100% following Yahushua, because not everybody loved him. Not everybody wanted to hear his ministry. Right? There was groups of people that did. Not everybody did. Not everybody agreed with what he did and what he said. You know, so we see here. Let's keep reading. Verse 6, and you shall begin to hear of fightings and reports of fighting. See that you are not troubled. These have yet to take place, but the end is not yet. So there's going to be fightings. There's going to be wars, whatever it is. There's going to be fighting. It could be fighting within your family, fighting at your workplace, fighting, you know, whatever. Stuff that we have to deal with, right, in life, that as we live here, that we have to endure. It's just, we have to endure it, you know. We have to continue in the truth. We have to continue in right rule. We can't succumb to the pressure. We can't give in to somebody because they keep pressuring us, or they keep pressuring us, or our children keep pressuring us. Pressure. Parents and co-workers say, you know, my child wants to date, or I don't know, she wants to do something that she's not supposed to do, and so she's pressuring me. Then you got maybe even other women in the congregation, or other men in the congregation, or your co-workers are pressuring you, your family's pressuring you, or maybe you're not together anymore, and so your ex is pressuring you. They're pressure. Let it happen. Just do it. And start thinking, you know what, I'm just going to do it. Whatever, forget it. I ain't even going to try no more. No, if it's something that you know, and you know for a fact that it's something that you're supposed to do, and you have to just hold your ground. You have to say, you know what, I'm standing right here. I'm not moving. On Shabbat, whatever it's Shabbat, I'm not moving. No. Somebody calls me and needs help on Shabbat, and it's like a situation where like a donkey in a ditch, yeah. But if somebody purposely is going to do something, like say they're going to go and they say, I'm going to move a couch tomorrow, and you know, and they already know, and they try to call me and say, hey, I need you to come get your trailer, help me get this other couch. I ain't going, no. Because you already knew I wasn't going to do anything on that day, and so you know, it's different. You go down the street, get a flat tire, you know, okay, maybe. Or my mom or somebody calls me and say a pipe busted and there's water flooding in the house. Okay, that's unforeseen. But if you're going to go to the store and buy a new TV, and you want to call me, knowing that I can keep it Shabbat, and want to call me on that day and say, I don't have no way to get my TV home, I'm sorry. I don't care, right? Because I'm going to stand, and I'm going to, no, I'm not. I'm not breaking Shabbat for that. I'm not, I don't care. You can hate me, whatever you want. But I'm going to endure, and I'm going to remain, and I'm going to stay put on that because I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to let you manipulate me and try to say, is this an emergency? And other people say, oh, man, you did that to your mom, you did that. No, you ain't going to come and, you ain't going to put pressure on me like that. No. You do that to your family? Oh, you don't care about family? Oh, you don't love your family anymore? Oh, you don't do this? Oh, you're too good? Oh, you this now? You say what you want to say. You can say what you want to say. I know what he's asked me to do. I'm humbling myself before him, and to the best of my ability, I'm going to endure and to remain and do whatever he's asked me to do. So he's telling us here that's what we're going to have to deal with. Verse 7, for nation shall rise against nation, and reign against reign. And a lot of times we just think of nations, but it can be people. It could be groups of people. It could be races, whatever. It could be families. And all these are the beginning of birth pains. They will deliver you up for affliction and kill you, and you shall be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many shall stumble, and they shall deliver up one to another, and shall hate one another. Why are we going to stumble? Because we're going to stumble because we don't know what it means to be humble, and we don't know what it means to endure. We just tend to think like, okay, I'm serving him now, and so once I speak his name, magically everything's going to be fixed, right? And it is power, right? It is, he can do anything, and his name is above everything. But he say, okay, my name's above everything, but this time it's going to be a slow process. I want you to push for a year. I want you to endure for a year and go through this and continue to do this, right? I'm like, this ended now, man. Let's make it over now, He's like, no, because you know what? I'm going to build endurance in you, right? And so we learn endurance, and it's not. I have endurance. Endurance is a quality, right? It's a character trait of Yahuwah, right? And it's something that we need. So a lot of us are going to stumble, and there shall many false prophets rise up and lead many astray. So we have to continue what? In the truth. Continue in what we know. We can't be swayed by everybody. We have to be confirmed. It has to be confirmed in the Word, Verse 12. Because of the increase of lawlessness, the love of many shall become cold. But he who shall have endured to the end, he who stands to the end, he who takes a stand to the end, he who presents himself or presents herself, he who continues, them who abide, them who are persistent, them who hold their ground, them who rise up, them who come on the scene, them who maintain, them who remain. These are the definitions of that word, endure. Those that do these things shall be saved. Okay? We're in for a fight. Right? And sometimes, I forget. I went through a couple weeks ago, just a couple weeks in a row. It's like, I forgot. I totally forgot. I'm in a fight. And I'm over there in my flesh thinking like, where are you at? And why aren't you doing this? And why aren't you delivering me? And what am I cursed? Thinking all these things in my head, because I have all these things bombarding me at the same time, and I just totally forgot. And then it comes to mind, after I endure it. Sometimes you don't even see it till after it's over. After it's over, when I kind of calm down, then you realize, like, son, you're still fighting. It ain't over. Just because you got a little bit more revelation, just because you know my name, just because you keep a little bit more stuff, doesn't mean you ain't going to have to fight. You're probably going to have to fight harder. And I forgot that. Right? And so I went through a little shaking, a little rattling, But now I'm like, okay, I remember now. Okay, I just got my head got a little sideways for a second there. I wasn't in sin, but I just forgot what I was up against. I forgot and it doesn't mean like I have to be afraid, like, oh, I'm going to have to fight again. Oh, I'm so scared. What's it going to be next? Right? Because we can't think like that. Because we're supposed to have shalom. We're supposed to be content. Just deal with it as it comes. Trust in him that, if it's coming my way, obviously I'm strong enough to deal with it. Even though I don't think I am, I must be. Because if it's coming my way, I'm able to do it. But when we don't endure, then stuff starts falling apart. If we don't endure with our family, then stuff starts falling apart. If we don't endure in our marriage, then stuff starts falling apart. You grow up different ways, you do different things, and even after years, even my wife and me, and still now, been married all these years, there's still things that we're still learning about each other. And sometimes it has to come through a disagreement. I'm like, ugh! And she's like, ah! Like, you don't listen to me. I'm like, you're not listening to me. I'm just trying to tell you. And she's like, I'm trying to tell you this. Back and forth, back and forth. And then finally realized, oh, I see that. Okay, you thought that. Oh, well, this is what you thought that? Oh, I didn't. Oh, see? Right? But, I mean, you can't sit and figure out, and some things you can only fix, only work out while you're in it, while you're doing it. You know what I mean? There's no other way. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things you can have qualities that you, like when you come together that can make it a lot easier and have a nice firm foundation, which is the Ruach HaKodesh and Yahuah, to fall back on, because when I get frustrated, or my wife gets frustrated, I'm sure she does the same thing. I go and pray, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do. I'm just like, he's like, go do this. I'm like, man, I don't even want to do that right now. Just go do it. I'm sure she has the same. I'm sure in her flesh she don't want to do things that he tells her to do, but a lot of times it's just a miscommunication. It's a misunderstanding. We both love each other. It's just a misunderstanding. And so when we're able to push through, we're able to see that, and we're able to connect, but we have to endure. And in marriage, it has to be endured. And raising children, you have to endure. There's so many things. But he gives us all the tools that we need. So don't let nobody tell you because you're standing your ground that you're being prideful, or because you're speaking up that you're not being humble. Okay? That's not true. Okay? There's time for us to humble our flesh, but before we humble ourselves before men, we have to humble ourselves before Yahuwah. And if he calls us to stand our ground on something, we have to stand our ground on it. We have to be obedient to him first. We have to obey him first. So let's pray. Yahuwah, we thank you, and we ask that you would help us. Help us to be humble and meek like you. Help us to have endurance to continue. And humble not meaning we let everybody walk on us, but we're humble in that we bend our knee to you, and we listen to what you've asked us to do, and we do it. And when you humble us and we want to do something that you don't want us to do, help us to be humble in that way in our flesh, that we wouldn't try to do what we wanted to do. Help us not use the word humble as an excuse to get out of something that you've called us to do. And let us not be afraid of people try to fling words like pride if it's not of you. They would use this word to try to shut us down from operating in the Ruach HaKodesh, that you would quicken us. We would not be afraid, but we would know that we have humbled ourselves before you, and we're doing what you've called us to do. The enemy wouldn't manipulate or twist the word. Help us not use the word humble as an excuse not to do what you've called us to do as well. Give us the endurance to remain, to stand strong, to hold our ground in the things that you've called us to, and to be firm, and that we will be saved in the end. Not only will you save us all the time, save our family and save the things that around us, but also for the expectation we have of the future of being rescued and being in fellowship and living with you and abiding in you forever. So teach us how to abide in you even now, even though we don't physically see you, that we would abide in you and we would trust in you, and that you would give us the endurance that we need to run the race that has been set before us. We thank you. In the name of Yahushua, YHUH. Hallelujah. Amen. Thank you for turning into Eagles Haven Ministry. Shabbat Shalom. Yahuwah Baruch you.